I was an IT professional for 15 years, but it really struck home when I got into consulting.
How did you come to real estate?
I got the email to this day, but it was from Robert Kiyosaki. Roughly 90% of people that get in real estate are gone within 1 to 2 years.
Look what they've done to my son. This is what we felt looking at the dying websites.
When you're in a great situation and you're bored, you know it's time to make a change.
Maybe we take a business card, put a QR code with your PowerPoint presentation, and we will go without a website at all.
Whenever a task shows up, the first thing you should do is ask yourself, can I just delete this?
How do we navigate the rough environments when they happen in the business?
Don't stop marketing.
Hello, dear listeners and watchers. I am Alex Elish. This is Big Performance Podcast, and we talk to entrepreneurs and big professional performance in their own niches to get their advice and support on our journey to career freedom most of the time. And today I'm happy to introduce Frank Iglesias. Frank, thank you for coming and joining me today.
Well, thank you, Alex. I appreciate you being here. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. I would want to start off by asking you to provide some of the details. How did you come to be a professional that you are today? How did you come to real estate? And what was it that made you stick to it? Was it the calling? Was it a situation? Or you just found your enjoyment?
Yeah, no, it's always nice to take a quick trip down memory lane. And my professional career actually started in the computer industry. I was an IT professional for 15 years and had a great run of it. I learned what professionalism was early as a corporate employee, but it really struck home when I got into consulting. Because as a consultant, now you're going out to client sites to help them with their problems, which really gave me another perspective onto this idea of helping others with the knowledge I have, bringing a value to them. And so we ended up going back to corporate because my kids were young. So as much as I love consulting, I needed to come home on a consistent basis, which is not always the case when you consult in the IT space. And it was a fun run, though. We had a good time. But during that run, we were introduced to an email. I received the email. I have no idea why I got the email to this day, but it was from Robert Kiyosaki talking about, hey, there's a seminar for rich dad, poor dad. And I thought, well, this looks interesting. So I went. It was a couple hours, something to that effect. And of course, I walked out of it. My eyes are huge. And I'm like, I had no idea. Had no idea that this was even possible. Fast forward from there, I then took the 3-day seminar that so many people have heard about, which then led to buying the expensive classes. But from the time of that first 2-hour seminar to the time of purchasing the first property, it was roughly 5 months. So we executed. We executed on it. Now, I still did IT for a few more years after buying our first property. But eventually, I just simply got bored with IT. It was a great company, great benefits, fantastic team. So I didn't really have any complaints about IT. I was just bored, literally just bored. And when you're in a great situation and you're bored, you know it's time to make a change. And so we made that shift into full-time real estate. And then, it was like walking into another planet, except it took a while to realize that, right? Because it was such a shift. But, as humans, we don't necessarily change too fast. So it took a little while to reorient myself and figure out, hey, this is really a new world we're in right now as we're getting into this. So it's a little bit how it started.
I think I would have been over surprised if you would say that you went straight out the university straight to real estate, because I would be very surprised that you succeeded.
Yeah.
But now
Well,
with that you're saying that you already had IT experience, you already had consulting experience, and like you understood the processes and how it is done in the corporate world. I see that when you moved to real estate and being this outlaw entrepreneur that I would characterize the niche as, you already had clear picture of the processes that you might be building there. Is that right?
so I did, but the problem is I didn't use it for the first few years. Because I was bored with IT, my brain, my mindset was like, all right, I don't want to think about it anymore. When in reality, what I needed was that coach to say, okay, and what I tell people is if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going to get into business full time, before you do it, really assess what are all the skills you're good at and how can you leverage what you're already good at into what you're about to get into. So while yes, I was good at processes and systems because that's what I did for 15 years, both as an employee corporately as well as consulting other businesses. When I got into real estate, my brain didn't take that knowledge and say, how do I apply that to real estate for the first few years? Because didn't really want to think about IT, but it never crossed my mind initially. And my initial coach that I had didn't really tell me this. So I just never really connected those dots. And then
How
later
did
on,
you came to bring it into, and how did getting back and grabbing the systems and processes from your previous career, how did it boost you within real estate?
well, I got a coach. I got some coaches that started showing me, hey, this is important, this is important, this is important. And then I was able to start connecting those dots of, oh, wait a minute, I've seen this before, but it was in a different industry. But I had to have that coach help me to connect those dots. Had I not gotten a coach, I don't know how long it would have been until I started connecting the dots. So coaching is a huge part of it, having that person to teach you and help you leverage your existing strengths because we all bring strengths to the table. The question is, how do we leverage them? Can we leverage them? A lot of times the answer is yes.
Did you recognize a jump in your performance when you implemented the IT strategies into real estate business?
To some degree, I don't know if it's a jump as much as a steady increment. Like, it wasn't like this, it was more of a just steady improvement. Things just got a little bit easier. We were able to do more stuff, take more things on. And but even when you're developing processes, again, I go back to the coaching. Sometimes you end up developing processes you don't even need, or maybe you're doing stuff you don't need to be doing. So even then, it's good to have that coach looking at what you're doing as you're building out processes and systems to make sure these are things that are going to move the needle forward. It's very easy to develop systems around stuff that doesn't move the needle. But then you just keep
I
doing
know.
it but then you keep doing it because it works. But at the end of the day, is it helping you get closer to your result? And sometimes it's not. I'll give you a perfect example of this. You could go out there and hire someone to build a website. Okay. Now we all need a website. Well, I say that. Some people would even say you don't need a website, and they could prove that they don't because they have the success behind them. But generally speaking, it's nice to have a website. But when you're new into the business, especially if you have a tech background, you could put so much time and effort in the website. But what are you doing to generate business? Are you doing anything to generate business? So sometimes, yeah, I'm working on the process. Yeah, I'm improving it. Yeah, it's flowing better. It's going to function better. But is it really moving the needle? You're paying someone to maintain it. You're paying the developer. You're hitting all the meetings. And all of a sudden, you got all this effort on a beautiful website, but there's no business. So,
I would not be able to agree with you less in this instance, because my business started as building websites for the clients, and they're coming to us. They share their vision, they share their idea, and our job is to craft the website to the specifications of their business that they have in mind. They don't have it on in like business process side of the thing. So when the website is done, they are only starting. They're taking the website, going and starting their first campaign, starting their first outreach. So the first feedback that they're getting from the market, from their potential clients, is not reflected on the website because we already built it, and they are out there fighting with the website that would benefit so much from this first bits and pieces of action actually being on the market, doing the business. So yeah, this is a challenge, and sometimes we found our past clients with awesome websites that we've built them in basically business that just exist only on our website that we've built, and they're doing nothing to
yeah,
improve
yeah,
it or to grow the business.
yeah.
Have you seen this episode in The Godfather, when the Don comes to the burial services and says, "Look what they've done to my son." This is what we felt looking at the dying websites that never really got the business to develop alongside. Awful.
Exactly. And so, like in real estate, and again, I'm in real estate, so there's no shortage of real estate websites out there that get little to no traffic because they have a niche that's very targeted. And so it's not like there's like tens of millions of customers, right? It's not, the market's not that big. And so you have all these people with website and they gain no traffic. And so it's like, okay, so the point being, there's nothing wrong with having the website, but it's just a tool. And so if you focus so much on process and getting that systemized and you don't have any business, then we got to reorient the priorities. Okay, the priorities first and foremost, what are we doing to generate income? What is that looking like? Well, maybe it's going to be marketing. Well, not maybe, it will be marketing. There will be a marketing component. So now it's like, well, how do I leverage this website as part of the marketing? How am I marketing the website? How am I marketing the services offered on the website? Is there congruence with what the marketing is and what's on the website? So it's a unified message. Right now, that website is becoming part of the process that really needs to be the priority, which is what am I doing to generate income? So there's nothing wrong, and we're beating up on a website today just as an example, right? It could be
Yep.
anything, but the key is what is the goal and what am I doing to achieve those things, and then build your first processes around that. The things that lead to leads that can generate into our clients, which lead to income. Let those be the first processes you build.
Yeah, and then you can equip your business with better tools when you already have a process. For example, to one of our past clients, uh, they wanted really a presentation for C-level executives to have a look at and be super fascinated with the exquisite service they provide. And when we talked a little, I I asked, like, how do you gonna drive those people to your website? He said, I will meet those people directly. I'm like, all right, maybe we take a business card, put a QR code with your PowerPoint presentation straight on it, and we will go without a website at all.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean,
different business process, different conditions require different tools to go along with it.
no, absolutely, absolutely. So the key is whatever it is we're good at, what processes do we know? What can we leverage to make the transition easier as we're getting into business? Or maybe we already own a business and we want to start another one. Okay, great. What did we learn? What are some of the business processes, systems we learned in the first one? What worked? What didn't work? What can I take as I start the second one so I could be more efficient and make better use of my time?
Imagine a big part of our audience are people who are starting out on their business journey, and some of them are excited about real estate business. Would you provide a shortcut, some advice that would help them get up to speed faster? In which order would you recommend doing the stuff to come to the place where you at?
So the shortcut in real estate, and I hesitate to use the word shortcut because sure there really are no shortcuts, but to speed up the process, so to speak, the number one thing you need is a coach, for sure. Because I mean, if you think about it, professional sports teams, even with the best players in the world, they have coaches. We have the Olympics coming up soon. Amazing Olympic athletes are not going to just show up and compete. No, that every single one of them's got a coach of some kind. And these are some of the best in the world. You look at professional sports, same kind of thing. But what about in the business world? Well, in the business world, like when I was an IT consultant, you had these qualified teams of people, and but they weren't experts at everything, as good as they were. So what do? They bring in who? Consultants. And those consultants help them how to do XYZ to improve their business for whatever goal they were seeking to achieve. Okay. What if you're the executive, you're the person running your business? Well, you don't usually call them coaches, you usually call it your board of advisors. Okay. So, whatever you want to call it, mentor, board of advisors, um, consultants, we need those people that have walked the walk before us. And not only just someone that's done it, but someone that's experienced success, but also experienced failure. Because I tell people, if you hire a coach that's never failed, what's going to happen when you fail? How are they going to help you if they've never been there? So you want people that have experienced the mountaintop, but also the valleys. And I've learned that the most successful entrepreneurs I've met, they've all been through the valleys. In fact, one of the biggest lessons I learned from some very high level people was if they hadn't been through a valley, they wouldn't appreciate the mountaintop. You know, and I'm like, well, that makes perfect sense. It's hard to appreciate winning if you've never lost, right? So you got it. So you want a coach that can help you with both sides, and what that person can do is that person can help accelerate your project, especially when you're new. Real estate is a business where what you don't know can and will hurt you, and it is a very expensive hurt. So I tell people if you're going to do real estate, you absolutely have to coach. But I believe if you're going to run a business, you need a coach. You need someone to bounce ideas off of. You definitely don't want to do business in an echo chamber. To me, that's a recipe for disaster. We all need that external wisdom that can pour into us to, give us that a second opinion, a third opinion, give us those thoughts to consider because there's a lot to the world of business. At the end of the day, there's a lot of things that can happen, both good and bad. And navigating those waters uh, by not being alone is extraordinarily helpful. It's invaluable.
I think real estate is one of the clusters of business that often multiply by binding together at first. So, real estate, legal, finance, accounting, you might be better off going to work for a real estate company or accounting company or to a lawyer's company. And then when you understand better the surrounding, where you have the connections and you have had the mentorship scenarios, then you will be able to go on your own. Is that true with the experience that you got, or you would say coaching one on one is the best place to start?
No, I would always say get a coach because a good coach, the first thing they're going to do is figure out what it is you want and should you even be trying to do what you want to do. There's a lot of people that get into real estate that leave. In fact, by my estimation, just querying our own data, roughly 90% of people that get in real estate are gone within 1 to 2 years. That's a large number, a lot of turnover. Why? There's a number of reasons, but one of the reasons I can tell you that's common is real estate is sold as an easy way to wealth. Easy, quick way to wealth. We all understand houses because we all live in one, right? Or if we don't live in one, we know somebody that does. So it's a very easy concept to understand at a high level. Shelter, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Large, small, whatever it is, we get the idea of shelter. And if we can learn just how to do the shelter thing better, then we can create wealth. And it's pitched as an easy thing. The reality is, real estate, I like to call it a full contact sport. And it can get very, very messy, even when you have it all figured out, quote unquote. It can still be messy. Why would it be messy? Simple. There's this thing called human beings. And humans are incredibly unpredictable. We can get very emotional. We can be very moody. We can be very illogical. Um, we all know that, right? We all get on social media and we see illogical things all the time. That's not it's not a surprise to anybody. But these things will impact the business, and so we got to learn how to navigate people. I tell people, real estate as a business in and of itself is not particularly complicated. It's relatively simple, but people are complicated. And it's true. People, there's over 7 billion people on the planet. I don't know what the latest figure is, but there's a lot of uniqueness in there. 7 billion versions of unique, to be more specific. And learning to navigate the people game is extraordinarily important in real estate. So, how do you learn people? Well, you can do it by trial and error, of course, right? That's always going to be a part of it. But a coach will help you how to navigate people. And so, should your coach be somebody that's maybe in your age range? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Depends how old you are, I guess. But what I do know is it needs to be someone that has a lot of experience dealing with people because real estate is very much a people business. The house part or the multifamily building, the office building, whatever it is you're doing with real estate, that's kind of the easy part. Okay. The people is the hard part. And so I
How
tell
did you
people,
learn to navigate the environment? What environment did you choose to be your style, your way of doing the business?
when you say environment, you
I
mean what
mean,
I
I
do
mean
specifically?
yeah, the niche within real estate. So as far as I understand, you are doing like hands-on, full contact business. So it's not like arbitrage.
Yeah. Yeah. So our focus has been in the single family space. That's been our focus. Have we looked into the multifamily space? Yes. Have we looked into the office space? Yes. Have we looked at self storage? Yes. Right. Have we looked at other facets of commercial? Yes. But what we've learned is real estate and many businesses, I'm sure, are similar, is prone to shiny object syndrome. It's like, all right, I'm going to go do this. Great. Then you do it for a few months, and then another shiny object appears. Oh, wait, let's go do that. And then another shiny. Oh, wait, let's go do that. And it's
Mhm.
very easy to lose focus in the real estate world because there's so many avenues to it. So I've learned that focus is very important and get really good at the one thing you need to be doing. And even in single family residential has multiple lanes. I could go do short term rentals and be like Airbnb VRBO master. I could just build houses. I could just fix and flip houses. I could just do rental properties. Each of those avenues could demand total focus just by itself. And I think one of the big mistakes we did early on, and this is again going back to having a coach, is we were involved in too many avenues too soon. And I don't have any doubt that that slowed our progress. We still progressed. We made a massive amount of progress. But as much as we made, we could have made more had we been more focused in the early days. But we didn't have that coach to tell us that. So it's like, oh, in fact, you would hear people in real estate say, well, you should know how to, do all different types of deals. Now, I agree and I disagree with that statement. I agree in that, as a general rule, yes, it's good to know multiple ways to do deals. But I disagree in the sense of trying to get good at all of them at more or less the same time. It's like, hey, if
Mhm.
I'm going to go do lease options, like really do lease options, and that's it for a while. Master it. Okay, now let's add the next one. Master that. Okay, now let's add it. Rather than trying to learn three, four different things at once. Can it be done? Yes. It just takes a lot longer because there's less focus. And we know the human mind, when we get focused, you talk about how to accelerate, make the most of time. In addition to coach, someone that can help you be ultra focused. That's something that would have helped us a lot in the early days. And today it still helps.
So, what is your avenue within single family residential homes? I saw you have a fix and flip style of content on the internet.
So we've done a lot of fix and flip. We do rentals, we've done new construction, we've done wholesaling, we've done the short term rental thing as well. So long term and short term rentals. At the moment, the way the market is, our focus has shifted more toward the wholesaling and the rental space. Just kind of staying away from longer projects, unless, not to say we wouldn't do them, but the numbers have to be very strong. And it's very hard for a lot of these deals to make sense today because of the high inflation. Construction cost is very expensive, inflation is high, labor cost is high, and interest rates are high. So we could deal with all the first ones if the interest rates were low and a lot of people were buying, but the reality is a lot of people are not selling or buying because it's expensive to buy. And then the majority of mortgages in our country, in the US, are under 5%. So unless those people absolutely have to move, they're not moving because they're not going to get as good a deal to wherever they're going as what they have today. So they're sticking with what they have today. And we had historic low interest rates. So not only are they low, they're super low. So it's like for them to move, it's got to be a really significant reason. Because you're going from a 3% interest to a 7, that's a very major jump.
How do we navigate the rough environments when they happen in the business? And I see the roughness all around us. I see it in websites, projects, I see it in small businesses that we are helping. One of the things that we discussed before we started rolling was stop fighting life idea that you presented Is that something that helps? How would you say you overcome rough patches in the business and on the market?
Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a few aspects. So the first aspect that I'll mention, which is the easiest, is don't stop marketing. Okay, it's well known that when things get tight, a lot of people they stop marketing, which is like the worst thing you could do. Okay, marketing is the fuel that keeps the leads coming in. So you can't stop marketing. If you you just can't. Just as simple as that. Do not stop marketing. You may have to pivot how you market. Maybe you need to make it more cost effective. Maybe you need to be more creative, but do not stop marketing. I have a friend who said it's always easier to pay for services than it is to be creative to get better at them. And I'm paraphrasing what he said, but that's effectively what he's saying. Is like it's so if I'm going to go market, it's easy to go pay to go do more ads or more signs or more mailers or whatever it is we're doing, right? Just pay someone, put more out there. Easy to do. But when market's tight and now we maybe don't have that much money to spend, now what that means is we got to be more creative. So rather than shut down your marketing, put your creative hat on and start figuring out more ways to creatively get that message out to as many people as possible. Maybe it's partnering with people, maybe it's using some more creative techniques, maybe it's using more guerrilla techniques, whatever it is. Really think about creative ways to get your message out that can really make a difference because there's a lot of ways out there. So that's the first thing I would say is when it gets tough, do not stop marketing. Matter of fact, you might want to even market more because you already know a lot of your competitors are probably going to do less. So that might be the avenue to actually increase your marketing if you can. Okay. Now you mentioned the phrase stop fighting life. And that gets more into the spiritual side for us, which is this idea of life is going to happen whether we like it or not. Whether we ask for give it permission or not, it's going to happen. Right? Maybe it's a major event, maybe it's a minor event, medium event, whatever it is, something was always going to happen that we weren't expecting for, didn't account for it, didn't plan for it, or maybe we planned for it, but it was bigger than what we planned for. Okay, whatever the case may be. And so what we've learned is when these things happen, like don't fight it, just accept that it happened. Okay, it's an event, it's a moment in time. And one of the things I had to learn, it was one of the hardest lessons I learned, is when something happens, it does not define you. It is just a moment in time, nothing more. The problem is it's easy to feed that. Oh my gosh, this happened. Why me? Why this and that? And like and right. And if you're not saying it to yourself, someone on the outside is saying it to you and they're distracting you. When in reality, cut all the noise out and say, okay, XYZ happened, whatever XYZ is. How do I respond? And the faster you can change that perspective, the better. So, right now real estate is down a bit. And, in some parts of the market more so than others. A lot of people run around and say there's no deals. There's in my city, there's over 6 million people. It's impossible for there to not be deals. It's 6 million people. It's impossible for there to not be deals. So we just have to adapt how we go get them, how we go find them. We have to experiment. We got to try different things. But are the deals still? The deals are still there. They just look a little different. They might be a little harder to get. I might have to negotiate better. I just have to change my perspective on the challenge. And that's what I would say is when you're fighting life, you can't be creative while you're fighting. Because if you're fighting life, you're trying to hang on to what you think it should be, but reality has shifted. So don't fight the fact that reality has shifted. Accept it quickly so that you can start working on the solutions. Okay, what do I need to do differently? How do I need to grow? How do I need to develop? What do I need to grow? What do I need to develop? so you can get back to empowering solutions quickly.
Returning to your previous idea of focus and this idea of taking it one step at a time, can you elaborate on that? Because today I had a call with my team and we were trying to put things into perspective. But when we look at the bigger perspective like half a year, 1 year, I have no idea what will happen. My team thinks that I would be there to provide this long term vision. And I don't know, as we talked with you, the technology changes so fast, and we are so connected to the technology as basically a entrepreneur technology partnership situation that we have now. I have no idea what happens in half a year, and I'm like, we will not survive if we try to think long term here. Let's focus on the small term perspective. How do we, can I be sure about this approach? Is it the right approach? Would you recommend it?
So I don't know a lot about what your company does, so I'm going to hesitate on saying is it right for you. But here's what I will say: when we focus and we really remove a lot of the distractions, our brain has less weight to carry. I had a mentor teach me this concept a few years back of do everything you can to create more brain space. And what he was referring to is he was looking at what I was doing. He's like, Frank, you have so much going on, you don't really have any time to think. And he was right. We had so much going on in the now. So it wasn't even in the future, it was in the now. There was so much going on that I literally, it's like, it was kind of like being in almost in a survival type mode because that's all there was time to do. So what we learned was this, and that was when I started learning the idea of if everything's important, nothing is. And so we would cut out a lot of things. But then we ended up with a unique problem, and that was we had a bunch of we got rid of all the fluff, and now everything that was left was still important. So, and we had too many things left, but they were all important. So then it became a question of, well, then what do you do with that? If everything's important, and it actually is important, how do we prioritize that? How, in other words, what do we focus on? And so then it became a question of, well, let's say it was 10 things, and I think the list was like 12 to 15, if I recall. And let's just say 10. All right, then of these 10 things, which of these is going to move the needle the farthest forward, the quickest? Which will give me the best ROI, the best results, the best bang for my buck today or in the near term future? Near term being like the next few days. And then, okay, so we're going to focus on that. And then if there's enough brain space left over, because again, we need brain space to think. We have to have that. Okay. Okay. You can run to the point where your brain hurts, but if you do it 30 days in a row, you're probably not be happy with the results. So let's focus on item number one. And then when we got it sorted out, okay, now we'll go to number two. So it might be a while before we get to number 10. Does that mean 10's not important? No, 10 is still important. But we got to systematically attack these one by one to get the results we need. And that helps us move the needle forward faster rather than trying to give 10 things all this different attention. So when you're talking about what you're doing with your team, I would say, and I think you mentioned the next 30 days, the next month. Okay, what's important for the next month? Is it one thing, three things, five? I don't know. But whatever it is, prioritize that and go all in on the first one. A lot of times we will work super hard to convince ourselves we have to work on all of them at the same time. And as much as we would like to do it, sometimes it's just not realistic. And I was in IT, so I was really good at multitasking. But what I've learned is as good as I was at multitasking from my IT days, my best multitasking days were still nowhere near as good as a day of solid focus on one thing.
This is a great advice. I think in my explorations of productivity and performance, there was a day that I had 30 things on my to do list and I made it. I was absolutely exhausted. I felt this pride and joy that I won over a huge task list. But in 2 days, it did not matter.
No,
I don't know it was just a bunch of tasks that I did. Maybe instead of replying to each of the emails, I could have just deleted them. Just as effective for my business as I spent however much time I spent to reply and sort the emails I did. So really
100%.
focusing on the things that matter and how you do it seems to be critical.
Well, and the thing is, you finish that task list. Not only did it not matter in a couple of days, I'm willing to bet that 2 days later, there was a new one ready to go,
Indeed.
right? So the tasks will always keep coming. And so I'm going to share. I take no credit for what I'm going to share. It was a guest on one. It was a gentleman named Brandon Gano. He was on my podcast, but he shared something that I absolutely loved. So Brandon, if you're listening to this, you get all the credit. But he shared this, and I think it was wonderful. And I think this is great um, for your audience if it's a lot of people that are getting into business. And he called it the 4 Ds. And it was this idea of the first D is whenever a task shows up, the first thing you should do is ask yourself, can I just delete this? Like, can I just delete it? If you really can't delete it, then the next question was, can I delay it? Can I put it off? Like, does it really need to happen right now? Now, some things do need to happen right now, right? But a lot of things, again, going back to that idea, a lot of things we think are important, they can wait. So, can I delay it? And if I can delay it, then that means I can schedule it for the future. So, I'm giving its priority, it's just going to be down the road. And then if I can't delay it, then the next question was, could I delegate it? Okay, it has to be done. Okay, I can't delete it. It has to be done. Great. Can I get someone else on the team to do it so I don't have to do it? Again, and all these steps, as you can see, they're keeping your brain free. And if you can't delegate it, like if nobody else can do it but you, like if you truly can't turn it into a process or give it to someone else, and you absolutely have to do it, okay, now you can do it. And I think that was how he described the last one. So there was 3 filters before you ever actually executed on a task. So I really loved how he described that. And I remember that same day I applied it to my business. I was like, oh yeah, I got more stuff I can delete. This is great. You mentioned email. Email is great for deleting because most emails are like, right? Like, do you really need to respond to the majority of the email you get? Maybe you do. Maybe that's you. But I know for a lot of real estate people, the majority of email we get, we don't need to respond to it. It's a waste of time.
I in with my inbox I have the rule of one time. One time I open the email and I don't like or I don't find the contents valuable, I hit unsubscribe straight away. Whatever the company it was, whatever the past connections we had, it wasted my time. It goes my subscription gets removed straight away. Helps me immensely. I recent before that, when I was working with startups in a corporate position as a marketing operations technician, so I had the finger on the pulse of different kinds of technology, marketing operations, sales, CRM, stuff like that. I had tons of emails, and I felt that this is my must do, to read their updates to see whether the match. No, it didn't matter. So
Yeah.
setting the brain free and giving space for the thought process to happen is huge.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned subscriptions. Sometimes those can be a little tough because there's a lot of really good subscriptions out there where people are putting out great content. And so you kind of feel bad about unsubscribing because it's really good stuff. But you have to just learn to be okay with it, because the reality is, if it doesn't apply to you right now, it's okay to unsubscribe. Okay. Maybe make note of it. Hey, when I'm ready to dive and focus on that, okay, great. Now you could go back. But it's easy to litter your inbox with really good information. That's quality. It's good. It's not trash. It's quality stuff. But it just doesn't apply right now.
Now, when we're thinking about for this process, I really thought maybe we can change this with facing the new technologies like AI and how we use it in the business. But then I thought, like, nah, we really should not, because it's part of the delegation. Before I will think about delegating to my team, I would think about building a ChatGPT agent that does that task for me. Because the benefit of it would be this ChatGPT agent will be able to handle every consequent task that looks exactly like this one in the future. And this is like immense benefit for the organization. What do you think about this AI revolution and how it empowers some of the processes already today on the market?
I mean, I think AI has definitely got a place, right? Like, it's immensely powerful. We all saw what ChatGPT could do when it came out. But the reality is, as good as ChatGPT is, and of course, there's other AI tools out there, right? It seems like there's 10 new ones every day. It seems like, and they're not all good, right? Some are much, but like any new thing, you're going to have what's really good, and then you're going to have a lot of people that are going to give it a shot, and it's maybe not going to be as quality a product. And that's okay, right? That's part of, you know, our capitalistic world. People are going to try things, and hopefully some will be profitable. Some of it's just open, and people, they gift it away, and or subscription model, whatever the case. But even though all of that is going on today, the thing about AI is, in my opinion, it is only as good as the person operating it. So what you type in, or whatever it is you request it to do, it's only going to be as good as what you tell it. I'll give you an example I saw that's not ChatGPT. And this was we've seen these programs that create video clips. Take a video, split it up into a bunch of clips that you could then post on social media. Okay, great. So we tried one, and we said, hey, give me clips of, I don't remember the exact number. I think it was like 60 seconds, something to that effect. Well, the AI went in there and started clipping up the video based on the logic provided. And what we learned was the results were very hit and miss. Or sometimes the text on the screen didn't actually match the voice. So the voices were talking about one thing, but the text was something totally different. We're like, yeah, this is not working. But then we went to another platform that gave us some options, and we picked some more granular options, and it came out great. And so you have two AI technologies doing the same thing with vastly different results. Now, me as the end user, I only had limited options, right? I could only say pick from five different things here, maybe six or seven on the other one. But between me and the AI, somebody had to develop what it was doing. Some developer was back there coding in whatever it is they were doing for the AI to do what it was going to do. There's always somebody involved with AI to get the AI to do what you need it to do. It does not magically happen. Okay, somebody's in the background behind a keyboard telling it how to make it better, improve it, teaching it how to teach itself, whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And whatever it is, so AI is only ultimately as good as what you are telling it to do, whether you're the programmer or you're the person at the prompt.
Definitely. It will never do,
Yeah.
at the current stage of technology, I will never trust it to do 100% of the process. I will give it to do 90%, and then we have a human intervention for the rest 10% of either modifying the prompt or changing the parameters that we want the machine to include into the work process, or just looking at what it had provided and maybe changing it manually, saying, okay, we can do a little bit of changes to make it better, and it's good to go. But if we try to do 100% of that by a machine, the result is stable but worthless.
Yeah. And I have found AI is the more fact driven it is at whatever it is you're trying to do, the more it's based on facts, figures, hard data, the better it is. But when you're talking about trying to get AI to help you with subject matter that is more subjective, that can have more opinion, more viewpoints, I find the results to be not quite as good because at the end of the day, it's still a computer. And you could even ask AI for viewpoints, and it'll give you viewpoints. But if its methodology is completely different than your view of the world, it could be totally useless to you. Or if your view of the world is in alignment with whatever the developer of the AI thought, it could be a great, like you just don't know, right? Like it's, so I find AI to be much better with tasks and topics that are driven by facts, data, figures, statistics. Because, like, at the end of the day, two plus two still equals four, right? And these indisputable facts, I think it excels in. But when you get into
True.
more subjective matter, I look at it as more of just almost thinking of it as like, let me just get some ideas. Sometimes AI is only as good as just I put in a prompt, it gives me a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, I may or may not execute on any of that, but at least it'll give me something different to think about.
True. Sometimes it's a super advanced calculator, really, because
Yeah, yeah.
it
I mean, it
calculates
can.
how many times these two words have it seen in the context together, and then it makes the calculation of, like, do we really want to see them together in this context, the context of the prompt that you've given it. And it says, oh, it has those two words have been together 35% of the time, so I will just give it.
Yeah, the quality of it's the old phrase, garbage in, garbage out. Right. Like if you put junk in, you're going to get junk out. But if you put quality in, if you put a quality prompt in, or if you're using an AI tool and it gives you a lot of quality options to pick from, then there's a much better chance of quality results. So, as good as AI is, at the end of the day, I still feel like it's only as good as the people using it. It's a
Agreed.
great tool, but it's a great tool, but we still got to improve us to get the most out of
In our place where we are only good so far as we develop ourselves, we can build nicer teams only as far as we work on improving our own skills, our own systems, and communication skills. What would be the thing that you are working on right now?
As far as working on me,
Yeah. What do you improve for yourself?
what is Frank improving for himself? The biggest thing I'm working on right now is actually a very simple concept. It's two simple concepts. One, just having complete confidence in the idea that it doesn't really matter what happens, we're going to overcome it. So just having the confidence. You've seen life, you can overcome anything. You just have to believe you can. And so it's really a very simple concept of, do you believe it? Simple. Yes or no, do you believe it? Because if you believe something, you really got to go all in. You really got to go all in. Which kind of leads to the second one. And this was actually something that was birthed in the last couple of days. And it's funny that it's coming up recently because it is actually an idea that was put in my head years ago. Many years ago, a friend of mine, he was a bit of a mentor, said to me, if you knew the power of a negative thought, you would never think one again. And I never forgot that statement. If we knew the power of a negative thought, we would never think one again. Well, you turn on the news, you go on social media, what do you see more of than anything? For most people, it's negativity. Not everybody, but on social media, you get on the news, absolutely. It's negative, negative. That's how they sell. It's how they make their money. We get it. But when you really think about it, and this was a challenge recently in one of the community groups I'm in, it was like you really have no time or energy to be putting into negativity. You literally just got to cut it all out. And it always, every time I hear it or I'm in a space, it brings me back to that phrase I learned several years ago. Do we really know the power of a negative thought? And if we sit down and we go through our day and we think about how many negative thoughts did I have today, it's kind of crazy. Like that, they don't have to be huge thoughts. They can be very small thoughts. But like anything else, if I have, let's say, 10 negative thoughts in a day, that's 10 times I could have been doing something better with my brain. And I think for a lot of people, it's more than 10 thoughts a day, but we're
How
going
do you
conservative.
how do you work on it? How do you try to give less energy to negative thinking?
So I think going back to what we talked about earlier, first I need the headspace. So when I was super, super, super busy 24/7, I didn't even have the headspace to consider the idea because you were just going. And when I was just going, was everything positive? Absolutely not. But you didn't have time to answer like a question you just asked. There was no brain space to even consider how can I improve it. So the first step is I got to clear up headspace to deal with it. It's another benefit of having headspace during the day is when something it's like, oh my gosh, my brain can actually stop and think about something, which is a beautiful place to be and really consider what's going on. And the second part of it, how do I improve it? Really, it's just keep it at the forefront of your mind. Be very, very mindful of your thoughts. Um, it's been said, and I don't remember where I heard this, but thoughts are things. Thoughts are things. And those things set off reactions in your brain chemically and the whole science behind it. And they're either going to run on autopilot, which people call it subconscious, or you bring it to the forefront and you deal with it, you do something with it. It's a whole lot easier to do that when you have brain space, when you have head space to actually do it. So now I've learned to make it a point to not be trying to do 20 things at once, have a little bit less going on so that I can give better care to the things that do cross my mind. And it also allows me to be more present. You've probably heard it said, a lot of people have heard it said, right? Be present in the moment, right? Make the most of the moment by being present. It's a whole lot easier to be present when your head is not overly saturated 24/7. It's a whole lot easier. And doesn't mean I'm not busy. I'm quite busy. But I'm not so busy to the point now where I can't think. So I can think. So now when something negative happens, okay, wait a minute, pause, time out. Don't just react. Let's think about this for just a second. Again, going back to the idea of no matter what happens, I get to choose how to respond. I don't have to rely on default instincts or anything like that. No matter what happens, I get to choose how to respond. Don't fight it, accept it. Now make a decision. What does this really mean? And let's pick an empowering thing rather than the default. And I think we all know that if we go to our default reactions, most of the time it's negative.
Yeah, we are trained to get negativity, to be more sensitive to negative thoughts that we would to the positive ones. When I'm listening to what you're saying, what came to my mind is this frame of thinking about it that I picked somewhere. And it was about this idea that you shared, that thoughts are things. And the idea says that you have a power to evaluate how does the thought that just came to your mind, how does that thought serves you, and how does that thought behaves. And answering those two questions, you kind of have a way to choose how much attention to give to that thought. If it's this thought jumps out of you, out of the TV on you, and it's about world coming to an end, this thought does not give you too much. It behaves in a bad way that tries to get you out of the balance and mess up with you. So you can try to choose to give it less effort, to give it less attention. Is that the thing, or we still need to process the negative thoughts?
I'm almost thinking of like what we were talking about earlier, the delete.
Yeah. Is it an
Negative
option?
thought comes. Can I just delete this? Like is right. Because if you think about a lot of the negative thoughts that come in, do they really even need any attention at all? The answer for I think for most people, certainly for me, is no. Just delete it. Just delete it. I don't need to think about it. It's that same process we talked about earlier that someone shared with me. I think that's the first thing. Oh, negative. You're in a conversation with someone and somebody walks up and they're negative. Do they need to remain in the conversation? Probably not. So you could respectfully let them know, not now or whatever, depending on the context. Right? Somebody sends you an email and it has a negative subject. Do I really even need to look at it? More often than not, no. Probably no value there. But if you do have to deal with it, then what was the next step, right? It was, can I delay it? Okay, do I need to deal with it now? Maybe it is important. Maybe someone has some negative news that does need some attention. Okay, doesn't need to be dealt with right now. Or can we just set a meeting, put it on the calendar, deal with it later? Because it may need to be dealt with, but it's not urgent. Or they may think it's urgent, but not really. This can wait. Or maybe it is important, but it's just not as important as these other things that you have going, whatever it might be. So I think you could walk it through the same process. But I think in reality, most negative thoughts are going to fall into delete. Like they just come up. And what is a lot of the negativity we tend to deal with? Well, I'm a human being, so I'll tell you what it is for me. It's simple, just good old fashioned doubt. I don't know if we could pull this off. I don't know if we could do this. Is this really going to work? Right. So it's really just me doubting myself. Well, that's an absolute all right, we're going to deal with that one right now because that's not empowering at all. So it just depends, I think, ultimately on the context. But no matter what the context is, again, I go back to having the headspace to deal with it is paramount. Because when you're too oversaturated and you can't deal with it, now it's building up behind the scenes and you're not dealing with it. And that's not good. That is something I've experienced firsthand.
That's a great advice. Frank, what kind of goals do you set for yourself and for your business in a time frame of your choosing, really? I would say a year.
Yeah, this is an exercise we actually did for the first part of this year because we've been sort of pivoting our business a little bit. So we actually went through this exercise and we really thought about what are the things we really enjoy within real estate because we've done a lot of things in it. And we really thought about what are the things that really brought us the most joy, inspired us to where it didn't feel like work. What were those things? And and then we also realized that those things generally are things that bring value not just to ourselves but bring value to other people. And so I'll give you an example. Like we've built a lot of houses from the ground up. Great. But what we found was building a house is nice, but when you build a house and it's already pre-sold to a buyer and you see them getting excited about it and maybe they get to, they have the opportunity to contribute a little bit and give it their special touch and then you create that for them, that's a much much better experience. So we realized we like doing the things in real estate that are they profitable? Sure. But the things that really make a difference and get us real excited are things that we can do that help other people. That's something we really enjoy. Doing real estate just to do another house or another deal, the excitement, it used to be super exciting when it was new, but it's not new anymore. We've done it a long time. And it comes back to something I think we all realize, and maybe this is a good way of looking at your goals. I think as humans, we all get tremendous joy when we get to serve our fellow man. And so we use that as one of the things when we're setting goals for this year is how can we be a value add to people? How can we help people? And really put the focus there. Real estate just becomes a vehicle at that point. Real estate's just how we do it. But at the end of the day, we like to help people. I think a lot of people really like that aspect of business, right? So that's us.
And how did you change your business? You added this aspect where the family gets to contribute to the building in construction.
No, what we did is we shifted more toward doing the types of deals where we could help more people more quickly. So we actually did less construction as a result, because construction is a very slow process compared to other avenues in real estate.
So you shifted from one value that you are given as a service of selling the house, like from one owner to the other owner, towards helping the people in whatever different situations that they might be in, where they need you and where you are in a good position to provide them value, something like
Yeah.
that.
And so we want to do the types of deals that can help more people more quickly. Does that mean we won't do construction? No, we'll still do it, but we slow that down because it's a slow moving animal by default. Even when it goes perfectly and quickly, it's still slow compared to a lot of other methods. So it's not a good or bad, it's just different. And so we've made our primary focus other aspects that can move more quickly.
All right, that is about the business. And what are your personal goals? How do you set and how do you track that?
Personal goals I've learned are a lot easier. And again, it goes back to the people, just, prioritizing family. I mean, that's really the easiest way to describe it is we've really, business, of course, can suck up so much time, energy, sacrifice, and just realizing, okay, we didn't do this for that. We did this first and foremost for family. So let's focus on family. So keep it easy.
Cool. That's a great position to be in. And I thank you for your contribution to our community and the goal of having more people into entrepreneurship. And thank you for sharing your advice.
No, I appreciate you having me on. I've enjoyed the conversation, Alex, and just happy to help. And I hope this will be a great value add for your audience. So thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you.